Hear ye! A proclamation for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by His Excellency Charles D. Baker.
As after the first harvest in 1621, the Pilgrims gathered with their neighbors, the Wampanoag Native Americans, broke bread, gave thanks, and celebrated their freedom in Plymouth, observing the first Thanksgiving in the American colonies.
And whereas, during the American Revolution in November 1777, the Continental Congress proclaimed a day of Thanksgiving, Samuel Adams, the son of Massachusetts, wrote, "For solemn thanksgiving and praise, that with one heart and one voice, the good people may express the grateful feelings of their hearts and consecrate themselves to the service of their divine benefactor."
And whereas, with the country torn by a civil war,
Abraham Lincoln urged his fellow Americans to gather and give thanks during one of the most difficult times of our nation's history,
establishing Thanksgiving as a national holiday in 1864.
And whereas President Lincoln wrote, "To these bounties which are so constantly enjoyed that we are prone to forget the source from which they come, others have been added, which are of so extraordinary a nature that they cannot fail to penetrate and soften even the heart which is habitually insensible to the ever-watchful providence of Almighty God."
And whereas in this season of thanks, we should take the time to remember and reach out to our neighbors in need.
By providing a helping hand, working in a food pantry or kitchen, donating clothing, or volunteering in our communities.
And whereas this week, as family and friends across the Commonwealth and country gather together,
may we be mindful of our gifts and talents,
our blessings, relationships, and goodwill,
the peace we enjoy,
the liberty we cherish,
and the hope we have for a joyful year ahead.
Now, therefore, I, Charles D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2020 to be Thanksgiving Day, and urge all the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Greetings to you all on this Sunday before Thanksgiving. We invite you to rise up wherever you find yourself and join with us in singing or in humming a few verses of We Gather Together. The lyrics can be found in the order of service that was emailed out to many of you and are also posted on the worship page of our website. Good morning to you all, and welcome. Welcome to our service here on November 22nd here at First Parish Church in Weston. I am Jeff Barsnell, the minister, and we are delighted that you could take the time to join us. Join us on this day. If you are a new viewer checking us out, we welcome you. And if you are a longtime member and friend, we are very happy to have you tune us in on this day. We continue to miss the blessing of being gathered with all of you in person to worship, to give thanks, and to come away renewed. Our service participants this day include Jeff Weeding, our organist, Bill Sano, our director of music, the Reverend Sarah Napoline, our assistant minister of families and outreach. And I also want to offer a special welcome to our guest musicians this day, Larry Unger on the banjo and Eric Boodman on the fiddle. Our service is produced and edited by Mr. Max Hall and Jacob Barsnell. I would now like to call forward John McCann and Alice Moylan, who will light our chalice for this day.
This is Thanksgiving Sunday, a time we traditionally embrace to reflect on everything for which we are thankful. In many households, a few moments may be set aside before a meal to give thanks. Alice and I have particularly liked a collection of prayers entitled Saying Grace, Blessings for the Family Table. Here's an Iroquois prayer from that book. We return thanks to our mother, the earth, which sustains us. We return thanks to the rivers and streams which supply us with water. We return thanks to all herbs which furnish medicines for the cure of our diseases. We return thanks to the moon and stars, which have given to us their light when the sun was gone. We return thanks to the sun, which has looked upon the earth with a beneficent eye. Lastly, we return thanks to the Great Spirit, in whom is embodied all goodness, and who directs all things for the good of her children. As another reflection from the book notes, no one ever misunderstands the melody of a grateful heart. Thanksgiving is a universal expression that encompasses so much more than the food we need each day. So we light this chalice in thanks for friends, family, the fruits of the harvest, and the many, many additional blessings that we enjoy.
Thank you, John and Alice. We now invite you to participate in a recent innovation here at First Parish Church in Weston, a virtual exchange of peace. As I know, we have this amazing technology often on our persons and in our pockets all the time, and we accomplish all sorts of remarkable feats with this, at least by the world's and by history's standards. But we rarely employ these things, these small electronic devices, to simply wish people well. So take a moment and reach out to folks you know from First Parish or from the larger community and send them a text, shoot them an email, give them a quick call, and simply say, "Good morning. I wish you well." Say you can't talk long right now because you're actually attending a service, and it's okay if they don't quite understand or think that's a bit odd. Tell them you are attending a service and wanted just to take a moment and wish them some peace and wellness during this time when so many people are struggling. And now my colleague, the Reverend Sarah Napoleon, has a time for all ages.
I'd like to tell you a story from a time long ago, in the time of King Solomon. And now, King Solomon was a great, great king of Israel, and very, very wise, and very, very strong, a good leader. But very often, he would get very stressed out and very upset. The horrible things of the world would were a complete calamity. And the joys in his life brought him to new heights of exaltation. And these things stayed with him, and his joys were so fleeting, and his sorrows felt like they would stay forever. And he heard once of a magic ring. And he said, yes, this is it. He called his advisors to him, and the advisors went. And he said, advisors, I've heard of this magic ring that brings peace and steadiness to anyone who wears it and carries it. Go, find me this ring. And so the advisors, of course, doing exactly as he wished, went off on their way to find this ring. And they searched high and low in every jeweler they could find, every sacred place and treasure trove. The king had told them he had wanted it in 6 months, right before the Feast of Sukkot. And so they searched and searched up and down to have it ready for the king by this deadline. And they could not find it anywhere. And finally, most of his advisors gave up, just said, it cannot be found. I don't know what we'll do, except for the very youngest of his advisors. And this advisor searched and searched everywhere and still was struggling to find it. And then it was the last day, but he had not given up hope. And the last day, he was walking through the poorer neighborhoods of the city. And it was the night before this festival, and so families were preparing. There was joyousness in the homes, even though they didn't have much to share with one another, even though they were struggling. And there was a vendor selling jewelry right outside in the street, and the advisor went up and said, oh, who knows, maybe this is the spot. And he went up to this jeweler and asked about this ring. He described it, and the jeweler smiled and went back into his back room, came out with a simple gold ring, and then carefully inscribed something on it with a sharp tool and gave it to the advisor. And the advisor looked at it. Oh my goodness, this was it. This was the ring he had been looking for. And he said, oh, thank you. And he gave this poor jeweler all the money he had, all the money he'd been given by the king. And then he went back to prepare and to give this ring to the king. And so upon the time of the feast, all of the advisors came forward and came up to the king, and most of them were so worried, of course. And the king looked at them all and said, well, where is this ring? You bring me this ring that I have demanded that you bring. And the advisors all looked very, very worried, except for the youngest. And he said, have you brought this ring? And the youngest said, yes, I have it here. And he gave it unto the king. And this was a simple gold ring, and on it had been inscribed in Hebrew, which I won't try to pronounce for you, this too shall pass. And the king looked down and read it, and yes, he knew this was that magic ring. Because now he put it on his finger, and when the joys in his life came, he would enjoy them so much and relish them, but know that this would pass. And when those sorrows and painful, painful things happened, he knew that this too would pass. And in this way, he found peace. And now, this is happening a lot in all of our lives, and we may not have these beautiful gold rings to inscribe, but I invite you to maybe take a piece of masking tape or other tape at home and write on it, this too shall pass, or just TTSP. And wear it on your wrist a little bit Make it so it's not sticky, and see how that affects you during the week, especially this holiday week. Remember, this too shall pass. Thus ends our story.
I'd now like to invite Bruce Peterson forward, chair of our stewardship committee. He's going to offer some remarks to us here on this Thanksgiving Sunday. Bruce?
Thank you, Jeff. I'm Bruce Peterson, and I am chairperson of this year's stewardship committee. We currently have 2 stewardship campaigns in process. For the year ending this September, we have mailed 210 letters, and we have received commitments from 86% of you, and payments, more importantly, from 85% of our goal for the 2020 stewardship year. The stewardship year will be over in 7 weeks. There are lots of positives. We have a strong stock market. We have a new president. And since there are a number of parishioners who make payments without a prior commitment, I'm asking that as many of you as can, please send your commitment payment in before New Year's Eve and get that tax deduction. PayPal, a bank transfer, a stock gift, a gift from your foundation are all avenues that you can use. I would note that over 42% of our contributors have increased their commitment for 2020. That's a good goal. For 2021, we kicked off the campaign at the end of September. We mailed again 210 commitment cards and have received responses from 48% and are on our way to making the budget for 2021. Again, a significant number of you have increased your commitment. The virus has made this a difficult year, and I ask all of you to be particularly generous and increase your 2021 commitment to First Parish if possible, and importantly, respond to the letter that we've mailed you. Thank you for listening, and please support First Parish Church.
Thank you, Larry and Eric. Our reading for this morning comes from the Jewish Torah, from the Hebrew Bible, from the book of Deuteronomy. Here now, a section of chapter 8, verses 11 through 18. Take care Take care that you do not forget the Lord your God by failing to keep his commandments, his ordinances, and his statutes, which I am commanding you today. When you have eaten your fill, and have built fine houses and live in them, and when your herds and your flocks have multiplied, and your silver and gold is multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then do not exalt yourself, forgetting the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, who led you through the great and terrible wilderness and arid wasteland with poisonous snakes and scorpions. He made water flow for you from flint rock and fed you in the wilderness with manna that your ancestors did not know, to humble you and to test you, and in the end to do you good. Do not say to yourself, my power and my might of my own hand have gotten me this wealth. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, so that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your ancestors, as he is doing so today. Here ends the reading. Thank you, Larry and Eric. So I want to begin this morning by relaying to you all an account of a very successful COVID-informed dinner party that occurred recently. A successful COVID dinner party, you say? Wouldn't that be an obscure oxymoron of sorts, right up there with jumbo shrimp or terms such as awfully nice? Well, as some of you know, First Parish has a long-standing Dinner Connections program. Essentially, we invite people to participate in a series of dinner parties with other church members over the course of a year, with most groups taking turns hosting a dinner for one another in their homes. People sign up for this and are assigned to a group of 8 to 10 people and given the charge of getting together for dinner and conversation. Usually, at the end of the church year, in June, we then hold a potluck dinner here at the church with all of the dinner connection groups coming together for one big, large, final get-together before the summer break. All in all, these dinner connection groups are a lot of fun. And I know that some people have developed long-time, even lifelong friendships because of them over the years. Well, this year we did not organize any dinner connections groups. We discussed it, but we decided it was probably imprudent this fall given the restrictions and the dangers of the pandemic. Even so, I am proud to report that some of you folks out there already in dinner connections groups from last year have apparently continued to find ways to meet and converse and connect. It has taken a little creativity and effort, but you have done it. Chet and Carol Sakala recently shared with me what their group has been doing. Knowing that they could not host one another in their homes, this group devised a workaround. Everyone was assigned a dish to prepare, be it a salad, a side, an entree, a dessert, and all agreed to drop off their food items at Carol and Chet's house by 4 p.m. last Saturday. Chet then donned his protective mask and a pair of food service gloves and proceeded to make each participating household their own to-go plate or box. And he then spent an hour delivering the prepared meals to each participating household. He went from being a corporate counsel by day to an ad hoc DoorDash driver, at least for one night. So way to go, Chet and Carol, and Patty and Dawn, and Mark and Melissa, and Ray and Gail, and Marty, and anyone else I omitted from this group, or I forgot to say from this group. Now, I share this with you in detail this day, since all of us this week find ourselves trying to plan holiday meals and Thanksgiving holidays amidst the stark realities of a pandemic. The spike in virus cases is alarming, with over 1 million new cases being reported over the last 8 days in the United States alone. This is the highest level ever. Currently, there are over 80,000 Americans hospitalized with COVID-19, smashing the old record of 59,600. In the last 8 days, well over 10,000 people have died around the country. And sadly, the numbers are trending terrifyingly in the wrong direction. As a result, many state governments and major public health medical organizations are urging Americans to cancel their traditional Thanksgiving holiday plans. We are all being encouraged to resist the habit, resist the inclination to travel to see loved ones for Thanksgiving or to have our loved ones come to us, as hard as that is for many of us to hear or accept. No one of us is a special case, and all of us need to fully understand the potential risks to ourselves and to our communities were millions of us to proceed with our typical holiday plans. And I just want to voice how hard and how frustrating and even saddening it is to be put into this situation in which we all find ourselves. But even as we bemoan this potential dire state of affairs, I think it is important not to give up having a plan and trying to enjoy what we can of the strange and very challenging holiday season that is before us. I would ask all of us, including myself, to remember that we are being asked to cancel in-person Thanksgiving gatherings, but not the giving of thanks. Indeed, even as we cancel our gatherings, we do not need to cancel Thanksgiving. Indeed, it may very well be that we need to muster and foster our sense of gratitude all the more this year. So here are my brief suggestions. My brief suggestions for the next few months as things become more dire and more bleak, and while we wait for the historically unprecedented rollout of a vaccine for 340 million people in this country and a total of 7 billion people around the world. Here are my brief suggestions. You ready? Cancel, give thanks, reach out, and repeat. Cancel, give thanks, reach out, and repeat. You know those instructions on the back of many shampoo bottles that all of us know and very few of us follow? Lather, rinse, repeat. I'm not sure I've ever met someone who's actually followed those directions and actually washed their hair 2 times in a row, but those directions are always there. Even so, I thought I would copy the rhythm and the brevity of those instructions for my message today. Cancel, give thanks, reach out, repeat. I suppose the cancel part of this is obvious, at least for some of us, but not for others. While there should not be any disagreement about common sense public health measures to spread this, to limit the spread of a highly contagious airborne virus, clearly there is. Some of us believe that in a country as wealthy and as well educated as the United States, most people should know better. And yet what should be non-controversial, straightforward, public health medical advice has become politicized. Let me just state here that I believe the following common sense public health recommendations, that following these common sense public health recommendations is our patriotic duty for all of us as citizens of this fine land. It's also the moral and right thing to do. It's an extension of the golden rule. Wear a mask for the sake of others as others wear a mask for the sake of you. While there are some debates about the efficacy of mask wearing for the mask wearer, it is abundantly clear that the best reason to wear a mask is not to protect yourself, oddly enough, but to protect those around you. We actually know those measures and actions that will help us slow the spread and flatten the curve and literally save tens of thousands of lives over the next 8 to 10 weeks. If Americans want to protect themselves and their families, we should skip indoor gatherings, including holiday parties and get-togethers. We need to avoid non-essential travel. We need to wear face masks in public and practice social distancing. And when we feel sick or when we think we might have been exposed, we need to isolate and quarantine ourselves until such time as we can get a test. We know better days are coming. We know there is a light at the end of this tunnel. But imagine for a moment if our elected leaders at this time, in the month of November, called upon all Americans from all parties, from all ideologies and affiliations to come together and follow these simple rules and practices just for the next 12 weeks. Imagine if we heard a unified call to protect our families, to protect our communities and nation by temporarily altering our behavior for this difficult and dire winter we are facing. Surely we can all temporarily cancel and postpone and restructure our lives if there is a larger purpose and mission in mind. But as we cancel, as we postpone, as we rethink and revisit, I think it's helpful to do something else as well. And that is to intentionally and regularly count our blessings. Take a few minutes each day to consider how fortunate many of us truly are amidst the hardships of this pandemic. The virus has profoundly limited the scope of many of our lives. There have been certain weeks where the furthest I have gone is the grocery store down the street. Literally, I did not put gas in our car for 6 weeks this spring. And all this social distancing and isolation gets more difficult over time. All of us understand that. We can easily become irritated and frustrated with our temporary restrictions and our limitations. We can also develop patterns in which we take all of the good things that we actually have in our lives for granted. Psychologists have a fancy term for this. It's called hedonic adaptation. We get used to those things that bring us pleasure and then start to forget about them. And so it is important. It is important to realize and remember the blessings we really do enjoy. If you have a job, if you have a reliable source of income on a regular basis right now, count yourself blessed. If you enjoy the company of a loving partner and a healthy family, count yourself blessed. If you are one of those people who has an amazing dog or cat or pet that enriches your life, count yourself blessed. If you have access to technology that allows you to connect with others, count yourself blessed. If you have high-speed internet access that works unceasingly, count yourself blessed. If you have a network of work colleagues and friends who support you and whom you can support, count yourself blessed. If you have packages delivered to you by people working hard to move goods from companies to customers, count yourself blessed. If you have easy access to exercise and fresh air, count yourself blessed. And if you have opportunities to make a difference in the lives of others, count yourself blessed. Perhaps it goes without saying, but not everyone is enjoying these blessings right now. Many folks in this area are having an increasingly tough time. I feel fortunate in an odd way because I am regularly reminded of this sober truth with my work with the Weston Cares Fund. As many of you know, a group of us founded a community fund in April to help local people adversely impacted by the virus. The steering committee of the Weston Cares Fund has met almost every single week since early May to solicit donations from people locally and then give away emergency grants to local families and organizations who are truly and sometimes desperately in need. Because of you, the many donors to the Weston Cares Fund, we have been able to give away over $70,000 to people in need over the last few months, and we have a lot more work to do in the next few weeks. While I don't want to go into many details, let me just state that anytime I begin to feel frustrated with my own situation, with my own lot in life during this pandemic, all I need to do is read one of the applications from some of the people who are truly in need and are applying to the Weston Cares Fund and find myself suddenly chagrined and inspired to do what I can. I would talk on the phone with applicants whose lives have been devastated. Imagine getting sick with this virus and then losing your job and having no income and no health insurance with 2 little kids in your house or apartment. I talked to someone who has that exact reality. Imagine the threat of being evicted from your home this winter amidst a pandemic. The work of the Weston Cares Fund has kept me grounded and all too aware of how fortunate I truly am, how fortunate many of us are, and how reliant we are on the goodwill and the tender mercies of others. This sort of mindset, this sort of gratitude fosters a sort of humility that's important in our lives. All of us need to be reminded that our lives could be very different but for the grace of God, as the old saying goes. Maybe that is why we hear various messages that encourage gratitude and humility in the Bible. For example, in our reading from the Hebrew Bible this morning from the book of Deuteronomy, we heard the ancient writer say, "When you have eaten your fill, and when you have built fine houses and live in them, and when your herds and your flocks have multiplied, and your silver and gold is multiplied, and all that you have is multiplied, then do not exalt yourself, forgetting the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Do not say to yourself, 'My power and the might of my own hand have gained me this wealth.' But remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you power to get wealth, so that He may confirm His covenant that He swore to your ancestors, as He is doing today." So that's the other part of my suggestion for a time like this. Reach out. Reach out to people and organizations you know, and perhaps even to people and groups that you do not know about yet. Reach out and find a way to make a difference. Find a way to give back, even if it's ever so slightly. Find a way to connect your activities, your personal sphere of action, to some larger purpose, and find your ability to give thanks and to appreciate what you have renewed and amplified and enhanced. In a very real sense, that is what Thanksgiving as a holiday is all about. Pausing to appreciate what blessings we enjoy in this life and finding ourselves inspired to be a blessing to others when and where we can. And you don't have to gather in person around a table in order for this to occur. Perhaps, just perhaps, not being able to come together in person this year, not being able to gather physically as a family or as a group, will accentuate our appreciation for those times in the future when we can once again do so. These will be the stories that we share with others down through the years. I have no doubt that all of us can endure these difficult and challenging days. And all of us can take steps in our own lives that actually help and support the lives of others. This is actually an ancient idea that informed how our own state and our nation was founded. It's the notion of commonwealth. It turns out that the most important aspects of our lives are advanced most effectively when all of us work and strive for some common goal and ideal together. This, too, is part of what we hold up and what we celebrate at Thanksgiving. So here's to clever ways of holding dinner parties and enjoying one another's company from a distance. Here's to enduring hard and stressful times. Here's to living through bouts of sickness and coming to the aid of others. And here's to supporting our loved ones and our friends and our communities and our nation and adding our individual voice and action to the larger chorus for a fairer and healthier world. Here's to giving thanks in new and different ways. During this strange and challenging week of Thanksgiving, I invite you then to repeat after me. Cancel, give thanks, reach out, and repeat. May it be so, and happy Thanksgiving. Amen. Wherever you find yourself right now, being sitting at your table or on a couch, or perhaps streaming this on a device somewhere, I invite you to join with me in this brief prayer. We praise you, glorious one, for this color-splashed, memory-haunted, hope-filled, justice-seeking, love-grown country, and the labors that birthed it, and the dreams that nurtured it, and the riches that sometimes misguide it, the sacrifices that await it, and the destiny that summons it to become a blessing for the whole human family. O glorious one, for this curious day, for the impulses that have designated it, for the gifts that grace it, for the gladness that accompanies it, for our lives, for those whom we came to be, for friends through whom we hear and see greater worlds than otherwise we would, for all the doors of words and worship and music through which we pass to larger worlds, and for the one who brought a kingdom to us. We pause to give thanks and to thank you for this crazy and beautiful and fragile world in which we find ourselves this day. In addition, as is your tradition and inclination, I invite you to join along with me in praying the prayer Jesus taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Many of you have asked how you can support First Parish Church in our work here in Weston and around the region, especially when we are not gathered here in body on Sundays. As we say in these services, you can do so three main ways. First, you can mail a check in to the church office. That works very well. Second, you can log into your bank account and set up a one-time or periodic donation electronically. That's my preferred way of doing it. Or you can log on to our PayPal account. And the easiest way to do that is to set up a PayPal account for yourself and then search on our office email address, admin@firstparishweston.org. We should pop up as an authorized recipient. Regardless of the option you choose, we are grateful. We continue to be grateful to you, the members and friends of this congregation, who continue to support our church's voice, our presence, and our mission. Together, what we do here matters, and it is worthy of our support. Let's give it up for Larry Younger and Eric Boodman. Thank you.
From all that dwell below the skies, let the Creator's praise arise. Let the Redeemer's name be sung through every land by every tongue. Eternal are thy mercies, Lord. Eternal truth attends thy word. Thy grace shall sound from shore to shore, till sun shall rise and set no more. Amen.
Thank you for joining us today. We invite you to check out our upcoming gatherings and programs, including our virtual fellowship hour that will begin today just after 11:30 a.m. on Zoom. There are links to all of our online meetings in the e-newsletter that was sent out yesterday and on the calendar page of our website. This week, we are holding several virtual meetings and programs, including Knitters and Stitchers, tomorrow, Monday at noon, and our Wednesday morning meditation meeting, 8:30, also on Zoom. The chat and check-in with the minister will not be held this week because of Thanksgiving, but will resume a week from then on Thursday, December 3rd. In addition, there are several other events and items where we're looking for people's support and participation. This coming Wednesday, November 25th, we will be serving dinner at the Bristol Lodge in Waltham. I believe we still need a couple folks to help with preparations here at the church on Wednesday afternoon and transporting food over to the Bristol Lodge. If you can help, please feel free to contact Mary Menino. The information about helping out at Bristol Lodge is in the order of service that's on our website if you click on our worship page. Also, just want to note that we have a new page up on the website about making a difference and helping out during the holidays. We are promoting a coat drive, a winter coat drive, to benefit Waltham Watch CDC. And also, we will be doing our mitten tree this year in a revised virtual format, benefiting the Second Step program in Newton. And of course, we continue to accept donations to the Weston Cares Fund, whose sign miraculously made it up to our altar table this morning, decorated, I might add, by Lynn Taff and Alice Moylan for this Thanksgiving service. Thank you to both of you for your designed gifts on this day. We continue to discover many ways that we can be supportive as a community from a distance. I am gratified to see so many of us stepping up and reaching out during this difficult time. That is what churches like ours do. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord keep all those whom you love, whether here or in some other place. May God be your companion, and you be God's friend, as you walk together through all the days of your life. And at the journey's end, may you find the welcome of God's love. It keeps us all. Amen.